Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog, and today I'm going to show you how to do a suspended bind off purlwise. I'm using this bind off for the bottom, the sleeves, and the neckline edging of my Wallflower sweater. I'm a fan of the suspended bind off because it creates a neat yet fairly stretchy finished edge. Since most of the stitches here in my sweater edging are pearls, and I want a smooth edge to my sweater, I'm going to bind off all of my stitches purlwise. If you'd like to see how the suspended bind off is done in ribbing, creating a much wavier edge, I have another tutorial available and I'll include a link in the video description. Now let's get started. A suspended bind off is very similar to a basic bind off in that you work a stitch and then pass one stitch over the top of the other to bind a stitch off. To begin, we're going to work our first 2 stitches, and in this case, since we're binding off purlwise, all of our stitches are going to be purled across. So I'm going to purl my first 2 stitches. And now we want to pass the first stitch over the top of the second, but instead of completely dropping that passed over stitch off of our needles, we're going to leave it on the tip of the left needle. Now we'll purl our next stitch, pull the yarn through, and the yarn comes through between the stitch you're working into and the passed over stitch. And then we'll drop both of those off the left needle, pass a stitch over, leaving it on the left needle, purl the next stitch. Again, the yarn comes between the stitch you're working into and the passed over stitch. Drop both off the left needle, pass over the next stitch, leaving it on the left needle, purl a stitch, bring the yarn between the stitch you're working into and the passed over stitch, drop both off your left needle, pass a stitch over, leaving it on the left needle, purl a stitch, the yarn comes through between the stitch you're working into and your passed over stitch, and drop both off the left needle. And you would just continue across until all of your stitches are bound off. I hope you enjoyed learning how to do the suspended bind off purlwise, and if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!